Next on the news.
I'm angry, I'm fired up.
As pro-abortion activists nationwide protest the overturn of Roe v. Wade, many wonder what other rulings will now come out of the Supreme Court. Plus,
with every abortion, there's 2 human lives involved.
We'll speak with Archbishop Joseph Naumann about what's next for Catholics after the high court ruling they'd been praying for came true. Also, amid staffing shortages, one restaurant decides to go high-tech to get help for employees. And maybe you hate returns, but some store chains are considering letting you keep your item after you get your refund. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. Now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, what's next? Activists on both sides of the issue say the fight has just begun, and the decision could open the door to some other rulings on hot-button issues in the future. The reactions emotional and at times violent.
I'm angry, I'm fired up.
That's after this Supreme Court ruling that overturns Roe v. Wade. Senator Lindsey Graham thanking former President Donald Trump for appointing conservative justices to the high court, saying this is a huge victory for the pro-life movement. President Trump deserves a lion's share of credit here. Now everyone is wondering what's next. In the majority opinion, Justice Samuel Alito says the ruling only involves abortion. But this concurring opinion from Justice Clarence Thomas goes further. He challenges the related legal basis that guarantees access to contraceptives and same-sex marriage. The morning after contraception pill, which prevents pregnancy from taking place, is reportedly in high demand right now.
Clarence Thomas, you say that there were errors in judgment made in those cases. I really suggest, Clarence Thomas, that you look in the mirror, because that is the error in judgment.
But the next big fight may be over the abortion pill. Medication abortion has become an increasingly common method for ending pregnancies. According to the Guttmacher Institute, more than half of all U.S. abortions in 2020 were medication abortions. Some Republican-led states have been moving to limit or even completely ban access to the drugs now that they can ban the procedure, since its legality is up to individual states.
This fight is far from over, right? It goes to the states.
In the wake of the ruling, several U.S. companies decided they will cover travel costs for employees who seek an abortion. Just hours after the Supreme Court ruling, a church in the Diocese of Brooklyn was targeted. Phrases such as pro-choice and separation between church and state were scrawled in chalk on the brick exterior of Guardian Angel Church in Brighton Beach on Friday. Part of a small white picket fence was also knocked over. The graffiti has since been removed. A police presence was there on Sunday during masses.
Abortion bans are illegitimate. Forced motherhood is illegitimate.
Protests against the high court's decision stretched from coast to coast over the weekend. From Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles, pro-abortion activists expressed their anger over Roe being overturned. In Cedar Rapids, Iowa, a pedestrian was injured by a truck while trying to cross the street in front of the federal courthouse.
I see people trying to push the truck back, and I just instantly got mad and ran over, tried to stop the truck.
And in Phoenix, law enforcement used tear gas late Friday to disperse the crowd of abortion rights supporters after they kept pounding on the glass doors of the state Senate building. Coming up later in this newscast, we'll speak with Archbishop Joseph Naumann of the Archdiocese of Kansas City about the protests and the vandalism at pro-life pregnancy centers. That's coming up on Currents News. A Staten Island supermarket employee now faces assault charges after allegedly slapping Rudy Giuliani. According to police, Giuliani was at a ShopRite in Charleston on Sunday when a worker walked up and slapped him on the back. Store security immediately responded and turned the employee over to the NYPD. Giuliani was at the supermarket campaigning for his son Andrew, who is currently seeking the Republican nomination for New York's governor. The Supreme Court handed a big win to a former high school football coach in Washington State who lost his job for praying on the 50-yard line after games. On Monday, the justices ruled 6-3 that the school district violated Joe Kennedy's First Amendment rights. The ruling said the coach's prayers amounted to private speech and could not be restricted by the school district. Kennedy praised the court's decision, saying he just wants to be back on the field with his team. Friday marked a bittersweet day for Uvalde High School's graduating class. They turned their tassels in celebration of their accomplishments, but also in mourning for the 19 elementary school students who will never receive their diplomas. As John Paul Barajas reports, the graduation honored more than just their students.
A month ago, we thought it was going to happen that Friday, so we've been through so much. It's an emotional evening for us, but we're so proud of these kids.
Families overwhelmed by emotion filed into the stands at Uvalde's high school graduation. Their students are walking the stage, a rite of passage that was stolen from many of the victims at Robb Elementary. All 19 students and 2 teachers honored at the ceremony.
We will always remember the victims and the wounded of Robb Elementary.
Less than 3 miles away, the memorial site continues to grow.
Keep their memories alive, keep their stories alive. We don't want them to be forgotten. We're going to keep continuing to share their memories in honor of their families.
On May 24th, the school was swarmed by law enforcement and surrounded by parents trying to get to their kids.
Now it's surrounded by flowers that over time have started to turn brown and wilt, along with other things like photos and mementos that have taken a beating from the weather. That's why San Antonio nonprofit Social Donations made these plaques with the victims' names, pictures, and even words from their obituaries to give the community here a more permanent and weather-resilient addition to the memorial.
Each one of them had a beautiful life, had beautiful memories, families.
Vanessa Rodriguez with the nonprofit explained the support is helping Uvalde residents heal. She says it's important not to forget what happened, but also to continue living life. These seniors have faced a tragedy and are now looking towards a hopeful future.
After it happened, the tragedy, he wasn't going to walk, but he decided he wanted to do. He's just ready to get it done and go on to Texas Tech University.
That was John Paul Barajas reporting. During her speech, Uvalde High School's valedictorian read aloud the names of all the victims of Robb Elementary and called the slain children honorary members of her graduating class. Pope Francis praised the life and work of a slain Italian missionary during his Sunday Angelus. Sister Luisa Del Orto had been helping children on the streets of Haiti for more than 2 decades. On Saturday, the nun was injured during an armed attack and died shortly after arriving at the hospital.
Affido a Dio la sua anima e prego per il popolo haitiano, specialmente per i piccoli, perché possano avere un futuro più sereno, senza miseria e senza violenza. Sor Lucia ha fatto la sua vita un dono per gli altri fino al martirio.
Sister Luisa returned to the Lord just 2 days shy of her 65th birthday. 2 Nigerian Catholic dioceses are mourning the deaths of a pair of priests. Father Christopher Odayo was killed by kidnappers who grabbed him while he was on his way to Mass Sunday morning. Just the day before, Father Vitus Barago of the Archdiocese of Kaduna was killed. The incident happened during a raid on a farm by terrorists. Search and rescue operations are underway in Afghanistan after an earthquake killed at least 1,000 people. The United Nations says thousands of Afghans remain in shelters as emergency officials assess the extent of the damage to remaining structures. And humanitarian aid is also pouring in as the World Food Program and other organizations set up distribution sites. As Russian attacks target the capital of Kyiv, the Biden administration confirmed Monday that it is preparing to ship more long and short-range missiles to Ukraine. As Cole Higgins reports, the move comes as the leaders of the G7 nations focus on Russia during their annual summit.
Explosions rocking the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv early Sunday. Russian missiles hitting a residential area, including the backyard of a kindergarten and a 9-story apartment block, trapping some under the rubble of their homes. Police say at least 1 person is dead and 6 more injured as search and rescue operations continue.
Losing loved ones is the worst fate, she said. We do not deserve this.
Ukrainian officials say the multiple airstrikes may be a possible message from Russian President Vladimir Putin as G7 leaders gather in Germany for their annual summit. U.S. President Joe Biden and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson formally announcing Sunday that the G7 countries will ban the import of Russian gold, the country's second largest export after energy. Biden with a clear message for his G7 counterparts.
Putin has been counting on from the beginning that somehow NATO would and the G7 would splinter, but we haven't, and we're not going to.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson urging the U.S. to keep up the pressure on Putin.
This is something that America historically does and has to do, and that is to step up for peace and freedom and democracy. And if we let Putin get away with it and just annex, conquer sizable parts of a free, independent, sovereign country, then the consequences for the world are absolutely catastrophic.
I'm Cole Higgins reporting.
The Diocese of Brooklyn is helping kids get a Catholic education by hitting the greens. It was all a part of Futures in Education's 2022 golf outing. Golfers took to the links at the West Hampton Country Club Monday and raised money to help children receive the Catholic educations they deserve. Futures in Education has been serving Catholic school students in Brooklyn and Queens since 1989, providing critical tuition assistance to families in need. Looks like fun. There's a lot more news headed your way. No relief for air travelers. Hundreds of flights canceled for the first weekend of summer. A Catholic church targeted by pro-abortion vandals in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling, and how restaurant owners hit hard by a staffing shortage turned to a robot to help their employees. Cheering for Planned Parenthood as they marched on Sunday in New York City's Pride Parade. It's a testament showing that the pro-life fight still rages on in the Empire State. The organization says it is increasing appointment availability and expanding in-person services as it prepares for an increase of out-of-state patients. Friday's Supreme Court decision did nothing to change the legality of abortion in New York. The 2019 Reproductive Health Act made abortion a fundamental right in the state. And legally, it is impossible to enact regulations or restrictions on abortion, as most other states have done. Governor Kathy Hochul immediately spoke out against Friday's ruling.
To the 34 million women now at risk of losing abortion access entirely, I know this decision is a direct attack on your lives and your livelihoods.
Governor Hochul signed a package of bills ahead of the decision to protect abortions in the state. They include protecting women who visit New York to get an abortion and protecting medical professionals who perform the procedure from lawsuits and criminal charges. And coming up Wednesday on Currents News, we'll talk more about the state's abortion laws with Kristen Curran, Director of Government Relations for the New York State Catholic Conference. As it stands, more than half the states in the country have already or are currently working towards banning abortions. 9 states already had laws in the books banning the procedure. 6 states implemented trigger bans in anticipation of the Supreme Court's ruling, which went into effect as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned. And lawmakers in 11 states are currently working towards their own abortion bans. Pro-abortion activists attacking pro-life institutions around the country. One happened at a Catholic church in Virginia. Fairfax County Police say this message spray-painted on the church's entrance, along with 3 other places on the back of the building, were related to the Supreme Court ruling. Officers are reviewing surveillance footage from the church and have increased patrols around places of worship. The Diocese of Arlington is condemning the vandalism. The U.S. bishops have spoken out about these attacks, calling on lawmakers in a plea for peace. We're joined now by the Archbishop of Kansas City, Joseph Naumann, the former chairman of pro-life activities for the USCCB. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. It's great to be with you and your viewers.
Well, as you know, it was a turbulent weekend with protests and vandalism. We just mentioned the Virginia church that was targeted in the previous story. But even before the ruling, let's take a look at some numbers. There were more than 60 attacks on pro-life organizations and people. When do you think this will all stop?
Well, I think we're going to be in this frame of mind for a while. And, I think it'll stop when those on the other side stop getting attention for these acts of violence, and they begin to realize that what they're doing is really counterproductive. I think it doesn't represent their side well at all. And so hopefully they'll come to that realization. And I think the media coverage can help with that as well. It should be condemning this type of violence as much as they, condemn what happened on the Capitol on January 6th. If they would have that same vigor, I think this would end.
I was just going to ask you if you watched the news over the weekend, because it does seem to be even one-sided. The coverage seems, more focused on the mom and not the baby. How do you think the mainstream media has been covering the Supreme Court's decision?
Yeah, well, that's really no surprise. It's been that way for almost 50 years now, because unfortunately there's a strong media bias against the child, and they frame the whole issue as a women's rights issue, and that's a bad framing for two reasons. First of all, with every abortion, there's two human lives involved. It's not just the mother's life, but there's another human life, the baby's life involved. So you can't just say it's just about women. And secondly, the second victim of the abortion is the woman. And most of the women that I see in our post-abortion ministry really don't think they had any choice but abortion. So that's another, I think, one of the myths that they portray this as choice, but really it's women are desperate if they go to abortion. It's not what women desire or want.
Yeah, and the pro-life movement is often criticized for being just pro-birth and not caring for the mom and baby after the birth. But the USCCB has a program called Walking with Moms in Need, and that kind of goes against that misconception, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The church, our concern is for both lives, and we want to surround every woman that's in a difficult pregnancy with all of the support and love that she needs for herself and for the child. And we're not just concerned up to the birth, through our efforts, our crisis pregnancy centers, but also our Catholic charities. We're there to accompany women as long as it takes so that they and the child will both not just survive, but thrive.
So how do we get that message out? Since people don't think that that's anything that the pro-life movement cares about, how do we let people know that is the case, that they are there for the mom and the baby after the birth?
Yeah, I think part of the reasons we started Walking with Moms in Need was to educate people within the church, first of all, to realize the vast network of services that are there. And we want every Catholic and every Catholic parish to be aware of all of those resources so that anyone could come to the church and we can connect them. If we don't provide those services directly, we can connect them with those services and accompany them. So I think it's a big education process. Again, we're at a disadvantage because the media mischaracterizes a lot of times those crisis pregnancy centers and pregnancy resource centers in negative ways. But these are some of the real heroes of the pro-life movement, those that work day by day accompanying women and helping them to have all that they need for themselves to thrive, but also for the child to thrive as well.
All right, Archbishop Joseph Naumann, former chairman of pro-life activities for the USCCB. Thanks so much for being here. It's so nice to see you.
Well, thank you, and thanks for we need more media like you, so thank you for that.
As the abortion debate now shifts to individual states, the Vatican's top official on life issues says there's a need for a greater commitment against every form of violence within the pro-life movement.
The lives of disabled persons, of immigrants, may be protected and safeguarded because every human life is precious before God and before humankind. We must fight so that the death penalty is abolished along with abortion.
Immediately following the ruling, the Pontifical Academy for Life called on the faithful to overcome division and work towards an equitable society capable of protecting life. Still to come on Currents News, many businesses are dealing with staffing shortages. Next, we'll show you the high-tech solution one restaurant used to get more help. And have a return, why some major retail chains want to give you your money back and let you keep your item. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. The first full weekend of summer was another frustrating one for air travelers. More than 730 flights were canceled across the U.S. on Sunday. That's according to the website FlightAware. Delta Airlines and its hub at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International were most affected. The airline blamed high employee absences, weather, and air traffic control restrictions. While some of those flights were canceled because of staffing shortages, one restaurant has their own solution to not having enough help. And it was just in time for the crowds who came out to celebrate the Stanley Cup win. Micah Smith has the story from Denver.
The bar is packed. Avs fans are pumped, but there aren't enough servers to keep the good times rolling.
If you're not at the game, you want to be here.
Enter the robot server at Tom's Watch Bar in McGregor Square.
It's completely different than what we have here in the U.S.
Tom's Watch Bar operating partner Rafik Turkanovich says it may not look like much, but this robot can do quite a bit.
Definitely capable of going from one station to the next, delivering dishes, delivering food if necessary, and then going back to his home station.
Turkanovich says, like many restaurants throughout the city, they're having a tough time finding workers. When you add in the amount of Stanley Cup business the restaurant's been getting, they need help.
We did this just to help alleviate some of the labor pressure.
So on standing room only days at the restaurant, the robot will be put to work.
We have pretty strict ADA regulations, and that robot essentially follows that lane, right, and it has great maneuvering capabilities.
Turkanovich says the robot isn't a cost-saving measure and won't replace human servers.
Not saving money, but to help our employees.
That was Micah Smith reporting. The helpful robot doesn't have a name yet, and that's something employees are working on. Got a return you need to make? Now may be the best time because some stores are considering letting customers keep an item after you get your money back. Thanks to supply chain issues, some stores like Walmart and Target have reported that they have too much inventory. And with the cost of storage rising, many say it's cheaper just to give customers their refunds and let them keep the merchandise. The trend started with Amazon several years ago. I guess the silver lining to it all. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. In honor of the closing of this year's World Meeting of Families Sunday, here are some highlights of the global event at the Vatican. Hope to see you again next time.
I heard the war is a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king